Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So let's do my December wrap up. Happy New Year to all of you. Here is to hoping that 2021 will be a better one, but really just kudos to everyone who survived. So I didn't really read as much in December as I usually do. Mostly I spent a lot of my time on one book, but I still did a decent chunk. So I actually finished 15 books. So I'm gonna include my DNFs in this video, which I don't usually do, but there's only a couple. The first book that I DNF'd this month was Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is a VR virtual reality story, basically, about Wade, who lives in a fossil fuel lacking world where everything is just destroyed. And there was this video game called The Oasis that was created by this guy named Halliday, and when he passed away, he put an Easter egg in the game where if you find the Easter egg, you win majority shares in the game. I watched the movie first and I loved the movie, which is an unpopular opinion amongst people that actually read the book first. But compared to the movie, this was uninteresting and dreary and depressing. I really didn't enjoy it. I think that the movie was way more high-paced and it really captured the essence of hope and fun. This felt more high stakes. This felt like something bad was going to happen if he didn't find this Easter egg. And it just didn't go well with the story, I think. And that is an unpopular opinion. Most people who read this think it's so fun, so interesting, and just a joy, but I think because I knew the story from a different perspective, and the world is ravaged in the movie as well, but they don't focus on it as much, and so it just feels more hopeful and more fun, and this was just not it. So then my next DNF was Digg by A.S. King. So this is like it's weird story about a family that comes from money, and their kids kind of all get separated, and then the grandparents, their kids get separated, and then their grandkids all find their way back to each other, basically. And it's really only considered weird because there's some, you can see where I got to it. There's some surrealism aspects of it, and their names are very odd, but I got 139 pages in, and it just didn't keep my attention at all. I think it was just weird. The elements were just weird for the sake of being weird, and it wasn't for me. This might go on my DNFs to give a second chance list, but who knows. My last DNF of the month was Pretty Reckless, which is the first book in the Something series by L.J. Shin. I'm not going to talk too long about my experience with L.J. Shin. I've talked in various different videos about my experience, in addition to some things that have come to light about her as a person. I just don't want to give her too much attention. I DNF'd it. I thought it was pointless, and it kind of negated all of the work that we had done in the Sinners of Saint series, and the characters were just entirely too annoying, and she cannot write teenagers, which is their teenager in this book. So I will not be continuing my reading relationship with her. She just is not someone that I align with. Her writing is not that great. I don't think her books will be missed in my series. I will link some information down below so you can kind of get a better understanding of what happened. I'm not going to go too into detail, but it's important to know the sorts of people that you're supporting when you are a reader. Then I had one unrated book called The Naughty List, which is a smutty novella about Santa Claus and a woman. It's only like 100 or so pages, but she's alone for Christmas. Her kids are with her ex-husband. Santa Claus comes to drop off presents, and it goes from there. It was decent. It was okay. It wasn't good enough that I wanted to rate it, really. It was just a super quick read, holiday spirit-esque, and it was written okay. All right, so then I didn't have any 1 stars this month, but I did have 2 2-stars. So my first 2-star was Dark Lover by J.R. Ward, which is the first book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood paranormal series, and this was a huge disappointment. The writing of this was very old and very, like, I don't know the best way to describe it, but if you read like paranormal romance series from the 80s and 90s, then you'll know the kind of writing style that I'm talking about. Everything was just very cliche. The characters were just not anything beyond the stereotype of what they were trying to fit, and it just was written very poorly. I will continue the series just because it's 19 books and I know that it does get better, but this one was a huge disappointment. And then my other 2-star read was Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This is a very divisive book. You either love this book or you don't understand why it was written. And I'm kind of in the I don't understand why it was written boat. That sounds a lot meaner now that I say it out loud. I don't mean it like that at all. Like, I applaud Elizabeth Thomas. I couldn't understand why. So at Catherine House, you're going to an elite school that you have to apply to get in, obviously, and you are, for 3 years of your time at Catherine House, you are cut off from all mainstream society. You cannot be in contact with anyone in the outside world, but after you leave Catherine House, you are pretty much guaranteed success. This is where, like, politicians go, big businessmen go, etc. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this. There's some scientific, like, experimental aspects to this, but mostly you're following Inez, who is a very apathetic character. Stuff is just happening to her, and the entirety of the book you feel like you're drunk and or high, because she is the entire time. So, like, something important will come up in her head where she'll be like, this is weird, like, I probably should investigate this, and then she just doesn't because she's drunk. And that's how you feel reading this book. Like, it just feels like a randomly sewn together sequence of events where you're just like, why? I don't get it. And I liked the ambiguous ending. I enjoyed that. It wasn't like a pet peeve of mine, but altogether this was just annoying. You can only have, like, the apathetic character for so long until it becomes pointless and you need something to happen, you know? All right, so then on to my 3 stars. So my first 3-star I want to talk about is Bunny, which, kind of in the same vein of Catherine House, is very weird. This is about a woman who she's in an MFA program, and in one of her classes, there's a group of girls that call themselves the Bunnies. And they call each other Bunny. And they're this really exclusive clique, kind of ostracizes people. And so our main character is kind of on the outside looking in every aspect of the word. She is poor where everybody else is rich. She doesn't have, like, the social aptitude that everybody else has around her, and so she kind of just feels like this outsider. She gets an invitation to a party that the Bunnies are holding at one of their houses, and it, like, spirals from there. Again, this is kind of like one of those why books. I get the whole, like, poor versus rich aspect of it. It's just weird. There's, like, some animalistic, like, ritual stuff that's going on, and halfway through the book it just becomes so different. Like, it becomes a completely different story halfway through, and I didn't get why. Like, why was I reading it? I just didn't get it. So my next 3-star read is An Extraordinary Union. This is about a former freed slave turned Union spy during the Civil War who is infiltrating a Confederate family, and she is pretending to be mute, and she has a run-in with a fellow Union spy who is white and attempting to infiltrate the family as well and get into the good graces with the family's daughter and kind of, like, woo her, and they have a romance. There was nothing really about this that stuck out to me. There wasn't anything very memorable about it. I liked the, like, more political things that were going on, and I liked the spy aspect of it. A whole lot of the plot wasn't really going on, a whole lot of the romance wasn't really going on. Conglomeration of both, but neither were really doing a whole lot, if that makes sense. So I definitely feel like the relationship developed way too quickly, and we never really got the slowness of them developing feelings. It just felt underdeveloped in some places. All right, so then my next 3-star was Fallen Kingdom, and this is a YA fantasy getting points of view from 3 kingdoms. One point of view is a princess from a very, like, affluent, opulent kingdom, and she is the princess, and her sister is sick, and so she decides to go on this adventure to find this watcher who is part of this mystical, magical kingdom that kind of ties in with their religion and their like belief system. And she allegedly escaped from this group of watchers. She can heal the princess's sister. And then you're getting another point of view of the princess from another kingdom who is as wealthy, but the tyrannical king makes them live very puritanical life, and he makes them very subservient, and he rules the kingdom with fear. You are getting the point of view of princess there, and also the princess's brother, who is the heir to the throne. And she is going through some things where she's kind of showing some magical powers and she's trying to hide it. And then your other point of view from that kingdom is her brother, balance between pleasing his father and working with his father to become the future king, or helping his sister. And then your last point of view is a peasant from the third kingdom. The third kingdom is between the other two kingdoms, and it's a very poor country. Their trade is very, very bad. They're not really self-sustaining because of the things that the other two countries kind of did to them. And they have this almost shaman-like character who rules them. He seems to be using all of the wealth that he gets from them to kind of live in lavish while the rest of them are starving. That peasant that you're following from the third kingdom is tied to the other kingdoms, basically. I really enjoyed this. It is super fast-paced. There is seemingly always something going on. Every chapter is interesting. The plot moves so quickly, and the overarching world is interesting, but it's really, really predictable, and the characters were just kind of one-dimensional, but because it was so fast-paced, it kept my attention the whole time. And then my last 3-star of the month was actually a novella by Rilzy Adams called 12 Dates of Christmas. This is a friends to lovers to not friends to lovers. So basically, they were best friends when they were like growing up. They turn 18 and they start messing around with each other. And then the main female character breaks it off because she's starting to have other feelings for him, and she doesn't want to ruin their friendship. And then now they're adults, and he is back in their hometown, and he is determined to woo her. Rilzy Adams' writing is so great, but the female main character was really, really annoying, and her motivation and her reasoning for keeping it separated from the male main character was just so irritating to read about, because it was just this constant, like, he's gonna break my heart over and over and over again, and it was draining to read. Alright, and then on to my 4 stars. So my first 4-star of the month was Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend, which is the 3rd book in the Nevermore series. I gave the first and 2nd book in the series 5 out of 5 stars, but this one just felt different thematically. There's a lot that they're dealing with in this series that changes a lot of the whimsy and fun that came with the 1st and 2nd book. I still really enjoyed it, and I'm still gonna continue the series, but it was just a lot darker and dealing with some darker elements than the first 2 were, so it lost a lot of the fun aspect to it. But I love her writing. I love these characters. I love this found family and how they are willing to just do whatever they can. I love Morgan Crow. I love seeing her have such a big heart. It's such a heartwarming story and such a great series that I still really enjoyed this one, even if it just varied a little in the themes than I would have really liked. My next 4-star read is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. This one is a hard one to talk about, and I have gone in depth into my feelings on this story in a vlog where I talk pretty much exclusively about this book. This is the story between a minor and a 30-year-old man, starting when she was 6. To me, based on what I know about the author, is a woman who's experienced similar trauma trying to make her trauma something good. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. If you want more information, I'll link the vlog down below if you want more thoughts from me. But I gave this 4 stars instead of 5 because it changed about 70% of the way through, where before it was like this hard-hitting, gut-wrenching, uncomfortable story about a little girl who has just been failed in every single aspect of her life and became kind of like this weird murder mystery, and it just felt very off. So that's why I gave it 4 stars. But like I said, if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts and more of my thoughts on the author and all that kind of stuff, I will still leave the vlog down below. I would recommend checking that out if you are curious about why I gave this 4 stars. So then I ended up rereading The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, which is the first book in the Folk of the Air trilogy. This follows Jude, who is a human living in the fairy world, and she is a badass. And I absolutely loved this just as much as I did the first time I read it. I tabbed some areas of Jude just being a kick-ass character. She's fantastic. She's one of the best characters I've ever read. I loved her more than most characters I read, and she just is so amazing. And this story is just so gripping and so entertaining. And going into this, and I'll say this every time and I'll keep saying this, don't expect this to be heavy romance. It's really not. I don't know why it was ever peddled like that, because it's really not. It's about Jude getting what she wants and becoming the person that she never thought she would be, but that the person that she has to be to make things right. My next 4-star read was The Silent Waters by Brittany C. Cherry. This is the 3rd book in the Elements series, and this is about 2 people who have dealt with some trauma. So the female main character witnesses a murder when she is very young, and it leaves her mute, and it leaves her unable to leave the house. And her best friend, who visits her every day, and he plays her music and he talks to her and all of that, and so they end up forming a relationship. But he has always wanted to be a musician, and she wants him to explore his dreams. Then he experiences some things along the way that ultimately bring them together. I don't know if I didn't notice this in the first 2 books, but this is Fade to Black, which I'm not a huge fan of because, I mean, we're reading adult romance, you know? But the story was just so gripping. This is definitely a story told in moments. You are living moments of each person's life, and then that becomes like a culmination of their story together. And it just was emotional, and it was very good, and I definitely recommend this whole series. Definitely start with the first one. I think the first one has been my favorite so far. I read Tangled Vows, which is the story of an arranged marriage, a businesswoman and an escort. The businesswoman needs to get married to get her inheritance. This is like a dom sub. I didn't love the dom. She was very Christian Grey in the very beginning, and it was very off-putting for me because she was like, I'm so different, and I'm a dom because no one could love me, and I'm special, and I'm twisted, and I didn't love that. She was pretty annoying, but it got better as time went on, and I liked the sub Yvonne. She was great. So I'm excited to read the next book in the series. I think they all follow all females. And then the next one is also a novella by Rosie Adams, and it is 8. It is literally 45 pages. And it is a chef and a woman who hired the chef, and that's it. Steam, that's pretty much it. And then the last book that I read for the month, and my last 4-star rating, was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This took me a long time to read. It is 630 pages. This is the first book in his Cosmere world, which I am attempting to get into. This is a multi-layered story, but the brief explanation is that there is the city of Elantris that was originally alleged to be the home of gods. It was the center of trade in this world, and everyone kind of looked to Elantris to do magic for them, heal them, and just kind of like the titans of the world. And then Elantris ends up falling, and there seems to be this disease that has wiped out all the Elantrians, and now they are immortal, but they have kind of like lost their minds a little bit. It takes people from other kingdoms as well, and then once they get the disease, they get put in Elantris and locked away. But you're following 3 points of view, so you're following a crown prince who ends up getting the disease and thrown in Elantris. You're following the crown prince's, I guess, soon-to-be wife, and then you are following the priest of a religion that is attempting to take over the kingdom. Really enjoyed this. I think Brandon Sanderson has a big brain. He is so good at layering stories. He's so good at creating so many different facets of stories and character interactions and worlds. Just so good. Well, I read this very slowly over the span of the month, so I think that kind of deteriorated my enjoyment of the book a little bit, because in my head it was slow, but it's not slow at all. And I know that this is his most fast-paced story of his Cosmere. But I really enjoyed this. I think it's a fantastic start to the series, and I think it's a great way to kind of introduce yourself to his writing, even though I've heard that this is very different from his writing style going forward. But I really enjoyed this, and I'm excited to continue into his Cosmere. So that is it for all of the things that I read in December. Unfortunately, I didn't have any 5 stars, but I had some really strong 4 stars. Make sure you comment down below your thoughts on any of the books that I read in the month. What did you read in the month? I would love to hear it. I hope that everybody's end to 2020 was as enjoyable as it could be, and that everyone has a fantastic new year. And I will catch you guys in my next one. Thanks so much.